June 10th, 2023. Well, it finally happened here. I had predicted earlier that they were going to go forward with this federal indictment on Trump, at least on the documents cases, or what he calls the boxes hoax, I think. Of course, it's finally happened. There's like, I don't know, I think there was 7 major categories, but I think there's like 30 some charges because they stack these things up, so sort of like they did in the New York case. Um, this is Jack Smith acting true to form. And so, anyhow, on the other hand, I guess there's a few things we can say about this. One thing that I was apparently wrong about, I thought they would do all the trials in D.C. in order to maximize their chance of conviction, because moving it to the Southern District there in Florida and Miami, you have a lot of Trump voters in that area, and I think this is clearly a political case. One, with the two-tier justice system we have, obviously, whereas do we really think that Biden is going to get indicted for what he's done? Well, of course, as a sitting president, that is a real problem on that, due to Justice Department rules which prevented Trump from being indicted, in part when he was in office, when all the Democrats were trying to cause trouble for him, as you recall. But anyhow, so that one thing is the jury pool won't be nearly as adverse in Miami as it would be in D.C. The second thing is that by random chance they drew Eileen Cannon as the judge in the case. So they don't have necessarily a partisan biased judge against them. Now, the Democrats are going to try to make a case that she's biased in favor of Trump and she should recuse herself. You know that's coming. And I'm hoping that she simply refuses to do it, and at a minimum forces them to go to an appellate court to order it if they do it. And I don't think they have a real basis for it. Unless she's said something or there's any evidence, the fact that she ruled a certain way in a previous case and was overturned, I don't think means she's biased at all. It just means judges have difference of opinion on the law, and that doesn't indicate bias. And after all, Democrat judges occasionally get overturned as well. So, at any rate, so that's kind of the situation there, and we'll have to see how this plays out, obviously. Anyhow, by the way, if you like these videos, please give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and try to get other people to do so as well, I would hope. Yeah, so that's kind of the situation. I understand that Trump has got some new lawyers, and that may be because of the nature of the case, or maybe just the venue. So that's a factor to consider here as well, since it's going to be in Florida, and some of the other lawyers probably are more oriented to the D.C. court system. So anyhow, so that's one thing to look at. We don't know how this is going to play out there. An interesting thing is, and I think it's strange that this has only come up now, is that one of the defenses that he's going to have presented, apparently, which I think is an interesting one, is that since they passed the Presidential Records Act, and particularly was passed, I think it was in the very late 70s, I believe, definitely after the security laws that were previously in place for years, they're going to argue that, in fact, these documents are presidential documents, and as such are covered by the provisions of the Presidential Documents Act and not by security laws. Because after all, think about it. Presidential documents are often sensitive information involving which would otherwise be classified. I think a lot of it's created at the classified level and only released later if it's determined that it really is unclassified. So if the Presidential Documents Act is the case, does not involve criminal offenses, really. It's an issue more to be negotiated between the former president and the archives. So, which in fact he was involved in doing at the time this raid occurred. So the argument could be made that the whole raid itself was inappropriate and under the circumstances, and therefore it should be treated as presidential documents, and such all these criminal charges should be thrown out. So that's an interesting line of thinking. There may be other arguments made as well, but I thought that was something I had not heard really presented in quite this way before, and that may actually give former President Trump a leg up in this battle, as well as being in a much better venue and potentially having a better judge. We can kind of hope that she stays on the job there. I mean, of course, the press is going to try to force her off the case, but I hope she has the will to stay there and at least force them to go through the process of appealing it. And obviously, in that case, I'm sure that there'll be countervailing arguments by Trump's lawyers and probably appeals to the Supreme Court level, and that could take time. And of course, Jack Smith wants this to move fast. He wants a fast trial so that, in his mind, he can get Trump convicted and knocked out of the presidential race. That's his goal. And you have to consider also that one effort he may make, if this thing gets to the point where a trial is scheduled and is going to trial, it has been suggested that a deal might be made that charges against Trump would be dropped in return for him dropping out of the race, which is really their goal anyhow. I don't think they really want to have a former president in prison, except for the radical cuckoo liberals and the very irresponsible people that your Antifa types and Antifa supporters, those kind of people do because they're crazy. But I think everybody realizes this would be a stressful thing for the country to have, with so many Trump supporters in the country being absolutely outraged. I mean, what if they got angry and went on strike and quit convicting people under the federal law until the people pardon Trump or something? I mean, I'm just saying that these are kind of things that could conceivably, there could be bad consequences if that actually occurred, where if Trump were just to withdraw from the race, they'd get what they want, and that would probably dispirit the Republican Party to some degree, you see, and that would be a win for them, and that may be what they're angling for. At any rate, that's kind of that one. I also want to mention that I really find that this year's action, this week's action in the House of Representatives is just absurd. I mean, here you have these super conservative Republicans voting with Democrats to block the law that they were trying to pass, protecting gas stoves. I mean, that was their bill. Another guy had a pistol brace law that would protect the pistol braces from administrative banning, and he was going to withdraw his bill because he doesn't like the debt limit deal. I mean, I'm like, okay, you didn't get what you want, but face it, it's done. Even if Kevin McCarthy were driven from the speakership, it wouldn't change anything. The law's been passed. They don't have any chance to change that until after the next election. So why act like a spoiled child over it? These super, I don't even think I can see them as mainly as, they are conservatives, but they're also grandstanders. I think I'm as conservative as they are. But I'm not for grandstanding and stupid stunts, and that was stupid. Basically the Republicans had a half win here. They got about everything they were really going to get, and did so with minimal political consequences. In fact, I think they came off good. The people were supporting what we did, and then these guys go into crybaby mode, which isn't the way to get things done. The way to get things done is in the fall. The appropriation bills have not been passed yet. That's where you want to make your cuts. You need to make the cuts you want to make to programs and the budgets in those appropriation bills. And there, if you shut down the government, at least you won't have a default happening. All you'll have is a bunch of government workers pretty much having a paid vacation for a while. So that's a much better time to actually put your foot down than trying to do something where there could actually be, a real disruption in ongoing programs that were, funded at the time. And I just think the whole issue would play out better there. And we did get some real successes here. And I think they're minimizing the degree to which we did roll back a lot of Biden things, not as much as we want, but you have to realize we only have a slim majority in the House. The Democrats control the Senate. The Senate still has the filibuster. And so I think that, and the president, would probably veto anything that we didn't like anyhow. I mean, that he didn't like anyhow. So I think that's another point to consider when you think about this. And finally, I want to do a little update on the situation in the Ukrainian offensive. It looks to me like after about over a week, nearly a week here, 5 or 6 days anyhow, of offensives, it looks to me like that as of the latest reports I've seen, the Ukrainians are really flailing and not making that much progress and are taking fairly substantial losses. And recent reports, since the last time I did a video on this, they have gone ahead and committed some of their more elite units to the attack, including units equipped with the Leopard tanks, Bradley fighting vehicles, and all this Western equipment, and basically ran into a barrage of artillery, blew themselves up on landmines, got attacked by aircraft, both helicopters and jets. And so it looks to me like at this point, the first line of defense for the Russians in the southern region has pretty much held. And in pretty much all the other regions, they haven't made any significant progress. I mean, with the level of effort they've put into it, it seems to me that that the offensive is failing. Now, tomorrow may bring a different outcome, of course, but at the moment, I don't really see that this is working out very good for Ukraine, and we're beginning to wonder what's going on. Perhaps the pressure to attack from the West and the U.S. and the NATO countries became so great that they had no choice but just to go ahead and launch an attack and show what the results would be. Of course, it's also, I mean, that's a loss of life there, but I mean, if they continue this, eventually they'll wear themselves down to the point where they'll be vulnerable potentially to a Russian counterattack. But on the other hand, if they call it short here in the next few days, they will have kept the bulk of their forces intact, the bulk of the equipment we provided in the recent months, intact, and they would still be in a much better position to hold their defensive lines. However, in this conflict, I'd also say that it looks like we've reached a point where offensive warfare is very costly. That as soon as you move out and try to take something, you come under incredibly precise artillery fire, and so it's almost gone into kind of almost a World War I type scenario to some extent. So, but anyhow, we'll have to wait and see what happens on that. But I just give you that update on the Ukrainian offensive, and I've been noticing a lot of reports and different places on news sources, mainstream news sources, are saying things like, Russia's in danger of losing the ground they have, and all sort of negative things. I'm like, I don't see anything like that's really what's developed at all. So anyhow, that's the state of affairs as of this recording, and we'll just have to see in the days ahead whether the offensive picks up speed or whether it really fizzles out. That's I've noticed that some of the YouTube sites I follow, they go into more detail with maps and all kinds of stuff like that. One of them was really bummed out. I think he was hoping to see Ukraine really score some big victory, and it isn't too pleased. Well, anyhow, that's kind of it for now. I'll be posting this on Rumble, and of course the addresses of my social medias, Twitter and so forth, are in the description below, so you can follow me there. And I will wrap this up for now, and until next time.